All right, hello everyone. We're environmental educators here at Wilton Wildlife Preserve and Park, and today we're going to be talking about Leave No Trace. So a little about me, my name is Olivia. I graduated from Skidmore College in 2023 with a degree in environmental science. I'm a certified Leave No Trace Level 1 instructor, an avid hiker and rock climber, as well as wilderness first responder, and currently I work as an environmental educator for Wilton Wildlife Preserve and Park.
Hello, everyone. My name is Magnolia. I graduated from UAlbany in 2023. While I was there, I was their EcoRep program coordinator, and I was also a programming assistant for the Office of Sustainability. Some things I enjoy are hiking, paddling, learning about different plants and identifying them. And as of right now, I am an environmental educator for Wilton Wildlife Preserve and Park and stewardship assistant for Saratoga Plan. So a little bit about Wilton Wildlife Preserve and Park. Their mission is to conserve ecological systems and natural settings while providing opportunities for environmental education and recreational experiences. So the three main pillars that we focus on are education, conservation, and recreation. The preserve and park consists of 8 different parcels with over 25 miles of trails. So it's a really great place to get outside and go on hikes. But some other things that we educators do are go into different classrooms and talk about different environmental lessons. And sometimes students will even come to us and we'll do field trips with them. So lots of different educational opportunities here. So just a quick introduction to Leave No Trace. This is an organization formed in 1994 that just educates people on responsible outdoor recreation. They reach over 15 million people every year, and they developed 7 principles that minimize human impacts in the outdoors. So I'll go over them in a second. So the 7 principles are planning ahead and preparing, traveling and camping on durable surfaces, disposing of waste properly, leaving what you find, minimizing campfire impacts, respecting wildlife, and being considerate of others. So Olivia is going to jump into each of those principles.
Yeah, so today I'm going to be talking about Leave No Trace in the woods. So like Magnolia said, there's 7 principles that you can use to minimize your footprint while you're enjoying the outdoors. So just a little bit about the Adirondack Park. That's where I'm going to be kind of focusing my talk today. It's the largest park in the contiguous US, about 6 million acres. It's a patchwork of private and public land. And the land is actually protected under New York State's Constitution in what's kind of commonly known as the Forever Wild Clause. So the Constitution of the state would actually have to change for the land to lose its protection, which is really awesome. And there's about 1 million acres that are designated as wilderness and 1.3 million acres that are designated as wild forest, with the rest of the park being made up of a wide variety of other land use categories. A fun fact is that the bedrock in the Adirondacks is a northocite, which is the same rock as found on the moon. And it's most famously known for the 46 high peaks, which are the 46 peaks that are or were once thought to be 4,000 feet or taller in elevation. And if you do them all, you can become a 46er, which is pretty cool. So the first principle of Leave No Trace is plan ahead and prepare. So I'm going to start with talking about plan ahead. Whenever you are thinking that you want to go for a hike, the first step is to identify the trail that you want to hike. So you can look at a map, you can look online, you can talk to others. I typically do all of those things. It's always good to vary your sources. And then once you've found where you want to go, you want to start researching your hike. You want to identify the mileage, the elevation gain, figure out what the parking is going to look like, and also read some recent trail reviews. The next thing you want to do is check for any local regulations or advisories. In the Adirondacks, some good places to go are the Department of Environmental Conservation's website, or contacting the Adirondack Mountain Club, as they usually have up-to-date information on any regulations or advisories that you need to know about before going. Then you want to check the weather forecast. I always check the base forecast as well as the summit forecast. So I like to use mountainforecast.com. You can type in whatever peak you're going to be hiking, and it will give you the summit specific forecast for whatever day. And that's really helpful because the weather can be vastly different at the summit than at the base. It's usually much, much colder and much windier. So it just helps you to know a little bit more about what type of layers you're going to want to bring before you leave. And then the last step to planning ahead is to always let someone know where you're going and when to expect you back. That way, somebody else kind of knows what's going on that day. And if you don't come back, they're able to tell people where you were planning to be. So this is kind of the planning ahead for a fictional hike up Mount Marcy, New York's tallest peak. So online, you can see that there's the Van Hovenberg Trail. It's 15.8 miles in length, 3,562 feet of elevation gain. I can see a recent trail review that looks pretty good. And then I'm also always going onto my physical copy of the map and identifying my route. So I can see the circle in the top left is the Heart Lake Program Center, the Adirondack Lodge. That's where I'm planning on parking. And then I identified the Van Hovenberg Trail going all the way up to the summit of Mount Marcy. And I'm also identifying some checkpoints along the way. I can see I'm going to have 2 water crossings, as well as 3 or 4 trail junctions that I'm going to be wanting to look out for as I'm going. That way I know if I'm not seeing these landmarks that I picked out beforehand, I might not be on the right trail. So also while planning ahead, I'm taking a look at the weather forecast. So you can see I pulled up the forecast for Keene Valley, as well as on the left is the mountain forecast, summit forecast for Mount Marcy. So you can see it's quite a bit colder. So I know to expect kind of 50-degree weather when I get up there, and I'm going to need layers to be comfortable in that temperature, as well as 70 degrees at the base. I also got some information on the parking. It looks like it fills up really quickly and it's paid, so I know to kind of be prepared for that as I'm going. And then I checked the regulations. One thing that's pretty easy to do is just go on the Adirondack Mountain Club's Instagram. They usually post a backcountry report with any pertinent regulations for that weekend. So I can see there's a bear canister regulation through November 30th. But since I'm just going out for a day hike, I don't really have to worry about that. So next I'm going to be preparing, and I always make sure to pack what's known as the 10 essentials in my bag. So the first one is navigation. So like I said, I always carry a map. This is a waterproof, tear-resistant map. A lot of people like to use their phones for navigation, but a map, the battery on your phone can die, you can drop your phone, it can get wet. There's a lot of things that can happen. A map is always going to be good. So you really don't want to be going into the backcountry without one. Additionally, I always carry my Garmin InReach. That's an emergency SOS device and locator. So just in case anything happens and I don't have cell service or my phone has died, I have a way to contact people and let them know where I'm going. I also always carry a compass with me in the backcountry, again, going along with the map. And there's plenty of classes where you can learn how to use those if you're a little bit uncomfortable. It's an important skill to know. The second of the 10 essentials is sun protection. So always sunscreen before going, but I also carry a sun stick just to be able to put more on my face throughout the day, as well as carrying a hat just to keep myself shaded. Especially when you get above tree line, the sun can get a lot more intense really quickly. The third essential is insulation. So I always make sure to carry a couple extra layers with me, and especially non-cotton layers. When cotton gets wet, it will take your body heat and make you cold. Whereas if you get synthetic layers or wool layers, when they get wet, you'll be able to stay nice and warm. So this is just kind of a typical base layer shirt that I would carry with me. Easy to throw on if you get a little bit cold. And again, if it gets wet, it's going to still be keeping you warm. And then I also always carry rain pants, as well as a raincoat. Even if the weather forecast doesn't call for rain, this is always going in my backpack because it can change really, really quickly. And these are also really good for keeping wind off of you and keeping you a lot warmer on the summit. And the amount of insulation you're going to be bringing really varies on the season. So it's always good to make sure that you're bringing enough to stay warm. The fourth of the 10 essentials is illumination. So again, even if I'm just planning a day hike, I'm always carrying a headlamp with me. I'm not planning to be out there overnight or even in the dark, but you don't know what could happen. You could get injured or someone you're hiking with could get injured. So this is always going in my backpack no matter what, as well as an extra set of batteries. Again, just in case the batteries in the headlamp die, I have something else. The fifth essential is a first aid kit. So I always just throw this in the bottom of my backpack. There's, a wide variety of things in there, and it's pretty personal what you want to carry. I usually carry some KT tape in case someone rolls their ankle, some antibiotic cream, band-aids, gloves, menstrual products, hand sanitizer, toilet paper, all good things to have in there. I keep my extra batteries in there as well, so I don't have to remember to pack them every time. They just live in there. Um, but yeah, there's tons of other resources online that can help you build out a med kit. It's really important to be carrying that in the backcountry. The next essential is fire. Again, just in case you get stuck out there overnight. Fires are not allowed in the Central High Peaks, but in emergency situations, it's good to have some source of heat with you. So I just throw a lighter in my backpack. The next essential is any repair supplies. And this changes a lot if you were going on a backpacking trip or a day hiking trip. For day hikes, I just put some of this repair tape in my bag. That way, if I get a hole in my raincoat or my rain pants, I can quickly repair it, and be able to keep those waterproof layers with me for the rest of the day. The next one is nutrition. And again, this is pretty personal and can vary widely, person to person. I usually make sure to carry a lot of really easy and quick snacks. I like applesauce pouches, granola bars, nuts, fruit snacks, anything that will give you kind of a quick burst of energy. I also usually carry a sandwich, maybe some cheese sticks. But yeah, anything that will keep you going for the whole day. The next one is hydration, and I'm never leaving without at least 2 full Nalgene's worth of water, as well as I always carry Aquamira. This is an emergency water purifier. So if I run out, I can refill anywhere and feel confident that I'm not going to get sick. And then the last one is emergency shelter. And again, this can vary widely based on the season that you're going in the summertime, I always make sure to have an emergency blanket that can really warm somebody up quite quickly in case they get into trouble. And I also carry a little foam sit pad. If someone gets injured, they're going to be sitting on the ground for a long time if they're not able to hike out on their own, waiting for rescue. And sitting on the ground will make you cold very quickly, but sitting on something like a foam pad will help the patient keep their body heat a lot easier. But there's lots of things you can carry for emergency shelter. Sometimes it's a full tent, especially obviously if you're backpacking. Or some people will carry bivy sacks, which are kind of smaller tents that you can put over yourself. Yeah, so the next principle is to travel on durable surfaces. So a durable surface is any surface that will not be negatively impacted by travel. And I have a couple examples here. So the top left is just a regular dry trail, and that is a durable surface. So that's what you should always be walking on. This example right below it is a herd path. So you can see that people have been cutting off the switchback, and following herd paths are not considered to be durable surfaces. You always want to follow the trail as it was originally intended, so taking that full switchback every time you go. These middle photos are a wet and muddy trail, so there's 2 different options. One, walk right through it. You're going to be leaving really big footprints. You might get your boots a bit muddy or a bit wet. The other option is to cut around on the side of the trail and walking through the drier grasses. So in this scenario, staying on the trail is the durable surface and cutting around is not the durable surface. So people like to cut around mud patches quite a bit, and what that actually does is something called trail widening. So eventually the trail will become wider and wider, and that's something that we want to avoid. So staying on just the trail, even when it's super muddy, is always the best option. And then on the far right are 2 examples of surfaces you might encounter on a summit. So the top one is alpine vegetation, and the bottom one is bare rock. And whenever you're on summit, you want to stay off of the alpine vegetation and stay on just the bare rock surfaces. So camping on durable surfaces is the other half of the principle number 2. So the best place to camp is any established campsites or lean-tos, and making sure not to put tents inside of lean-tos. So you want to be looking for any of the New York State DEC camping markers. Those tell you where established campsites are. And if you are going to be wilderness camping or camping not at an established campsite, keep in mind that good campsites are found, not created, so you don't want to be knocking down any trees or really disrupting the environment too much. And additionally, you need to be over 150 feet away from any water source and over 150 feet away from any trail or road, as well as staying below 3,500 feet in elevation. And if you are going to be camping, you need to make sure that your food is stored properly. And this varies widely based on where you're camping. So this goes back to principle one, finding any local regulations or advisories and following those. So in the Central High Peaks, for example, you are required to use a bear can to protect your food from bears. And it's good to use these black ones that is shown in the picture because the bears are not able to get in there. But yeah, this regulation varies, so always make sure to do your research before going. So disposing of waste properly is the next principle, and the biggest thing here is pack it in, pack it out. So this includes everything that you're bringing into the backcountry with you. So any food waste, apple cores, banana peels, orange peels, pistachio shells, all of that should be coming out with you. It's not native to the environment, and it's not good for animals to be eating any human food waste. So just bring it back out with you. Also, micro trash gets left quite a bit. So like the corners of wrappers when you're opening things, it's easy for those to fly away if you're not keeping track of it. What I like to do for micro trash is put a dog bag in my hip belt pocket on my backpack and then use that as a mini trash can. So every time I have a little piece of trash, I can just open my hip belt, put it right in there, and then at the end of the day, take the whole bag out. And that's what has worked for me to keep track of small trash. Also animal waste, you want to be packing that out with you. When nature calls, so using the bathroom in the backcountry is a really important skill to know. There's a ton of videos online, so I'm not going to go into too much detail today, but you should know how to dig a cat hole. So you want to dig them about 6 to 8 inches deep and 4 to 6 inches wide. And again, you want to make sure that you're going off trail and burying all toilet paper that you're bringing into the backcountry with you as well. If you're going to be washing dishes, you want to wash away from any water sources and make sure that you're straining the dishwater to get any food particles out. So the next principle is to leave what you find. So if you ever see these boot scrubbers that's shown in the bottom left at trailheads, you can use those to clean your boots off. That helps to prevent the spread of invasives. But generally, this principle just means leaving everything alone. Don't steal other people's wow. So if you see something really cool in the backcountry, maybe take a photo of it, but leave it there for other people to have that same moment of like, oh my gosh, look at that. If you're on summit and you see these big rock formations, they're called cairns, and they're built for navigation purposes, for low visibility hiking or winter hiking. And you want to just leave them alone. They're built in a really specific way, and adding rocks to them or taking rocks away from them over time will actually destabilize them. So it's really important to just leave them alone. And that also includes not making your own rock stacks above tree line, especially rocks are used to help keep the soil from eroding. So pulling rocks out to make your own rock stacks is bad for the soil health. So the next principle is minimize campfire impacts. And best practice here is to use a camp stove. And again, this goes back to finding any local rules and regulations. Some places like the Central High Peaks don't allow campfires. So again, you would have to use a camp stove there, but it depends where you're going. So always do your research. If you are going somewhere that does allow campfires, you want to use an established campfire ring. You want to keep fires small, burn all your wood to ash. Make sure the ashes are cool to the touch, and make sure that you're only ever burning wood from the local area. Transporting wood from areas or from different areas to burn is a route of introduction for many invasive species. So always burn it where you find it or burn it where you buy it. And when you're collecting firewood, you can follow the 3Ds, which is downed, dry, and distant. So you only want to be collecting wood that has already fallen down. You don't want to be cutting anything off of trees. You want to be collecting only dry wood and making sure not to collect all the wood from one area, but collecting from multiple areas to, again, reduce impact. So respecting wildlife, this is a really broad category, but I just put down a couple of thoughts. So keeping your dog on a leash. Again, going back to rules and regulations, a lot of places do require you to have your dogs on a leash. But even in places that don't, it's always best practice to keep your dog leashed. Dogs running off trail can lead to erosion, or it can stress out local wildlife or stress out other hikers. Additionally, you never want to feed wildlife. Um, it's just, it's not good for their diets, and it's also really bad for animals to get accustomed or to start associating humans with food. It can lead to a lot of negative impacts down the road. Um, Following local recommendations, again, always a good idea. So an example here in the high peaks, if you can see these blue bear canisters on the top right have all been broken into by bears, and that's because the bears in the high peaks know how to get into the blue ones, so that's why it's a recommendation to use the black ones instead. Um, and then also make sure to always give wildlife adequate space. You can use the rule of thumb. So that says that if you close one eye and stick out your thumb, you should be able to cover up whatever you're looking at with your thumb completely to know if you're far enough away. And the last principle is to be considerate of others. Again, this is a really, really broad category, but some things that come to mind is limiting your group size, not having huge groups out there. Again, with the rules and regulations, some places have group size limits or day use limits. So you want to research that, especially if you're going with a larger group. You also want to use headphones for music. A lot of birds are calling back and forth, especially during breeding bird season, and music can interrupt that. And also, just other hikers might not have your same taste in music or might be out there wanting to listen to the sounds of nature. So just put in some headphones. When you're hiking, uphill hikers always have the right of way. So if you're hiking down, you can just step over to the side of the trail and allow uphill hikers to pass. If you're camping at night, I always use a red light setting on my headlamp. So it's, it's already on the red. If it's on the white, I just hold down the top button and it'll switch to red. And this doesn't affect your night vision in the same way. So it's just nice. You're less likely to wake other people up or disturb other people's night vision if you use the red light. If you're on the summit, you can consolidate your items, make sure that you're not kind of spread everywhere, especially if it's a busy day. If you're camping or using a lean-to in a public area and other people come, make sure that you're, making room for them, especially if the lean-to isn't at capacity yet. You want to limit your group noise while hiking. Again, this goes back to the music thing. There's a lot of animals calling that need to be able to hear each other. And also a lot of people are out in nature to enjoy kind of the sound of silence. So just keeping, group noise reasonable when you're outdoors is a considerate thing to do. And just generally being kind to others is kind of always a good rule of thumb in life and in hiking. So yeah, that's a really brief overview of the 7 principles. Obviously, I wasn't able to go into crazy detail about everything, so you always want to make sure to do your own research. There's plenty of other resources online. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. But yeah, otherwise, happy hiking.
Yeah, thank you for listening and for watching. Thank you, Olivia, for presenting,
Yeah.
and we hope to see you soon sometime.